Good morning, church. Let's talk about Psalm 78. Uh, this is one of my favorite passages when it comes to children's ministry, what it means to help parents know how to lead their kids towards God. And the psalmist starts off kind of talking in general to the people of Israel, but he talks specifically about where his information comes from and where it's going. He says, I will utter the dark sayings from of old, things that we have heard and known that our fathers have told us. So he's acknowledging the reality that what we learn from those who come before us. We learn from the example lived out by our parents. Um, and the corollary that comes directly off of that happens in verse 4. We will not hide them from our children, but tell to the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord and his might and the wonders that he has done. Uh, and that's good. And I think there's not a member of our church who would say, no, I don't want to tell my kids about the might and the wonder of God. But it gets trickier when you begin to talk about the practicalities of telling the next generation, because what the psalmist then has to do is talk about the places where Israel has been weak, the mistakes they've made, and where God has had to step in and intervene, where they've not been able to provide for themselves, and where they've failed in their faithfulness to Him, and where each time God is faithful and He is powerful and His plan is perfect in every way. And you think about how the psalmist goes through this process, a long chapter of telling a lot of the history of Israel, and how much of your history do you share with the next generation, with your kids or your grandkids? How much are you willing to talk about how you were weak and how you were faithless? We don't want to destabilize kids and make them think that we don't trust God, but are we willing to share our mistakes so that the glory of the Lord can shine through? We want to be made less so that He can be made more. And we want God's power to be made perfect in our weakness, but are we really willing to share that with the next generation, our weakness, so that His power can be made great? I just wanted to encourage you today, whoever the next generation you're called to minister to is, be willing to share your weakness, because God is calling us to share it so that His power can be made great in us.